Drew, we're doing it.
What's up, dude?
Hey, man, thank you so much for, for everyone that's watching this. Only if you knew this, like I've been in a lot of backstages, but right now Drew is trying to find Wi-Fi wherever. I know he's in the middle of nowhere, being a dad, giving people bananas. And I'm going to throw this out right now. As a dad, your son asked for a banana. You said, you want a nana? He said, yes. And then you gave him the nana. And I heard as he walked away, thank you. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
There's manners going on when Drew's being the dad. 4 kids, right, Drew?
Yeah, I have 3 step kids that I don't really consider step kids because their dad hasn't been in the picture in the last 11 years, and I've been with them. So yeah, we have one that's out of the house that's 20. We have a 14-year-old girl, a 16-year-old boy, and then Malachi is almost 3.
Wow, you're in it, bro.
Yep, deep.
Deep. I have a 19-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old son, so I'm very familiar with teenagers. I know that from when you're youngest to getting one of them out of the house, that's definitely a big journey right there. It's crazy, because you and I started talking a while ago, and I was introduced to you from Thomas, who runs SideOneDummy, along with my partner Bill Armstrong, and we started listening to Satsang and everything. And it was funny. The first thing, I didn't know what a Satsang was, so I'm sure you get hit up all the time when people are ask you sacred gathering. The first thing I had to ask you is music to you growing up, playing music, has it always been a gathering, whether it was when you were into punk rock, whether it was into hip hop, or whether you started music? Is that kind of, am I going down the right road? Is that where you kind of got the idea for what you wanted to kind of do as a musician?
Yeah, I mean, shows were always, my whole life revolved around going to see live music. That was it for me. Everyone I suppose has a thing, but for me growing up, that was it. Everything else was just details and killing time until I could go to another show. And it was like everything, whether it was a punk show, a hip hop show, or a fucking jam band show, didn't matter. Just live music was just always the shit. That was what me and my friends did.
Yeah. And when you say going to shows, waiting in between shows, I know you're from Chicago, Des Moines. Where would you say you cut your teeth going to shows, seeing bands, and having that moment where you're like, wow, I want to do that. There's more than just watching the band. I actually want to try that. Would that be Chicago, Des Moines? Do you kind of remember when you had that moment where you said to yourself, I think I want to do this?
Well, I mean, since I was real young, I've always wanted to do it, and Des Moines, when growing up in Des Moines, it was either really small shows. I didn't go to a lot of big shows, and when we did, we typically would have to travel, and we'd go drive to see, Widespread Panic, or big, huge jam bands that were playing arenas, or it was small, dingy punk shows, and that was about it. But once I got to Chicago, my sister was the fucking bartender on the North Side. She lived there forever. She knew everyone. All of her friends worked at music venues. So I was really blessed in that if anybody that I wanted to see came to town, I'd tell my sister, hey, I want to go to this show. She'd make a phone call. Hey, you're on the list.
What year is that?
So that would have been, let's see, I moved to Chicago in 05 or 06. So, or maybe 04.
Okay.
So
you're hanging at the Metro. You're hanging at the Metro, yep. Double door.
Yeah. My sister lived above the Metro forever, and she worked there forever. And then the Vic, I would go see shows at the Vic all the time. But if it was a venue on the North Side, I was there once a week,
Yeah. All those venues that you're mentioning right there for the folks that have been to Chicago and been able to enjoy those great venues. The Metro is probably one of I would say it's definitely in my top 5 venues in the world that I think is a great place to see a show. The history on that street, the Metro is just such a great place. Chicago in general, man, Vic Theater,
great fucking city.
Yeah.
I spent a good chunk of my early 20s drinking next door to the Metro at the Gingerman That was,
Yeah.
you know, all my friends were the bartenders there. You know, I was really lucky. You know, I could go into a bar with $10 and hang out for 7 hours. You know,
That's funny because when I met my crew in Chicago, it was the Wrigleyville Tap right next door to the Metro, and that's where I met so many people there, and just that scene and what was going on in music even then was so special. So I mean, to have a sister that could just get you float onto the list, that must have been awesome. Dude, some of the shows that came through, like SideOneDummy being from the cutting our teeth on punk rock. So many of our bands toured through there. So many of the bands that I loved. I mean, right off the bat, I can't not think of Chicago without thinking of the Haggerty Brothers. Naked Reagan, Peg Boy. I mean, that
Lawrence Arms.
Yeah, all of that. What are some of the bands that you I don't want to say were influenced by, but that you remember from that time that you dug seeing?
So my sister was good friends with the Lawrence Arms.
Okay.
Great fucking punk band.
Yeah.
Yep. And Brandon, fuck man, I wonder what he's up to these days.
Something gnarly, something rad.
Yeah.
That guy's a movie star. That's all I got to say. I remember the first time I ever saw that dude walking through the casino at Punk Rock Bowling. He has that thing about him where you're like, all right, I don't know who that is, but I think I'm going to know by the end of this weekend. And sure enough, I was like, okay, that guy's happening.
Yes. So at the Metro, it was pretty much always punk shows. Like I saw Flogging Molly there. I saw Anti-Flag there. Saw the Suicide Machines there.
Well, those are like three major bands that that I feel lucky that we've got to work with. Is it a trip for you to kind of think like, wow, man, like I saw these bands, I'm hanging with my sister, I start my band, and now here in 2020, after a crazy year, I'm going to be, putting a record out on the label that those three bands you mentioned with have all done stuff with.
Yeah, no, it's completely fucking nuts. And what the coolest process for me is, I typically don't give a shit, what other people think, but it was a really cool full circle moment to announce the Side One deal, just because so many of my friends that I grew up with, we used to, I mean, if you fucking skateboarded in the late 90s through the 2000s, you knew who SideOneDummy was because, half your fucking favorite bands had put out records with them. So like for me, probably my biggest influences were Bad Religion and Anti-Flag growing up. I fucking loved those bands, like obsessed, like teenage girls were with boy bands. That's how Bad Religion and Anti-Flag were to me. So like, I've known of SideOneDummy, since the early 2000s.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's super fucking surreal. It's super surreal, especially being that I'm not in a punk band, So like the thought of being able to fucking sign to Side One, it's really crazy.
But the thing that I feel like when especially with this new record, all right now, which I love the title, and it's not all right now, it's all right now. Like I really dig that, which I think all of us need to hear those three words, especially in the world that we're living in right now. But I feel that your music, especially like last night before, I got together to do this, I kind of just like put some music on at the house, started the record from the beginning to the end. And there's a sense of, we're going to get through this. There's dark moments, but the record really takes you up. It takes you down. When Trevor Hall, I love him. And that was I love how he comes in on the track, track that he comes on, This Place, because he comes in as a guest, but it also feels like I'm at a party and he just showed up and now he's out of there. Like, it wasn't like, okay, here he is, the way you kind of put that in there, the sequencing of the record, it obviously, for you and I, we're not going to start a circle pit to it like we might have done at Bad Religion, but I still feel that musically, I would say the feeling and the germ of what punk rock is, you're still carrying with you because you're still pushing ideas, you're still pushing thoughts. Can you kind of walk me through that?
Yeah, I think it comes out in certain songs more than others. Like All Right Now is funny because in my head I'm like, if we pulled the pedal steel and I hit a distortion pedal, that's a punk rock song, Like So, I mean, it's still there, you know, and it's very much present in how I write songs. And, you know, I just, I think having all of this time home in Montana has been really, really good for me. And it's allowed me to kind of settle down and catch my breath, um, and kind of start over as an artist and be like, okay, what do I want to fucking do? And like, what do I want this record to be and sound like? Um, and it just happened that all the songs I were writing kind of came out really cohesive. And there's this like cool, you know, Americana, uh, old country vibe that kind of hangs out throughout, you know, regardless of the song. And I thought that was really cool, but all right now, you know, in my head, I was just like when we play that live, dude, it's fucking heavy, you know,
Yeah.
it's a super heavy song. And it's funny because you know, when I shared it with my sister, that was one thing that she said. She's like, you know, this sounds like, you know, the Lawrence Arms are against me, you know, she's like, there's that vibe to it, you know, that's a rock song.
Yeah. That makes me feel good that I kind of felt that presence still on the record, even though, like you said, you're not plugging in the Marshalls and cranking it out. You know, even with
Yeah.
even the, you know, the first song from "And I Go," you know, that's a heavy song as well. Can you, because the chorus on that from "And I," you know, it if I picked up on it right, I feel like it's almost that song is symbolic of your whole journey from, you know, Chicago to where you are now, to fatherhood, from, you know, going through, you know, your, you know, rough patches with addiction and everything, and to where you are now, sitting here with drawings behind you and Christmas trees and a son asking for a banana. And, you know, I mean, it's a real journey. I feel like that song kind of almost is kind of the outline of it a little bit, of where this record goes a little bit from the beginning to the end.
Yeah, to me, From and I Go is like the all-encompassing song of like, if you want to know what the record is, you know, that song is it. You know, and it's like, it started as like this love song for Montana. You know, I wrote it in like 2 minutes, man. I was sitting on a rock in the middle of the river, um, and you know, it just came out really fast. But it like, I think it starts as like a love song to Montana and how much I love where I live, and then touching on like, yeah, dude, but home is a relative term, you know, and all of the places that I've been, they're all kind of home. You know what I mean? They're all, you know, every place that we go on tour, it's always, I know I'm coming back. You know, I'm never saying goodbye to anyone. It's just seeing a little bit. Um, and then, you know, at the end of the song, kind of saying like my wife, you know, my wife is home, you know, and um, if I just feel like the thing that made me really happy with that song is that I feel like if Montana was a sound, it would be that song. You know, just it's open and huge, and the fiddle, and um, it's just a real big open sound. You know, it reminds me a lot of where I live. So
Yeah. You know, when I think of Montana, I've had the opportunity, you know, to drive through there. I've never spent time there, but obviously nature, like you said, you know, you're writing songs in the middle of a river, sitting on a rock. You know, is nature your salvation?
oh,
Is that
100%, man.
is that your church?
Yep. Yeah, 100%. And again, you know, having this time off was so crucial for me because before music, you know, when I was just living in Montana before I started touring, you know, oh, that's all I did. I skied, I rock climbed, and I fished. That was what my life revolved around, you know. And I had a little fucking clapped out $700 Subaru GL wagon, and you know, I mean, my skis cost more than my car did at that point. You know, my whole life revolved around being outside. The rest was just fucking details. And um, you know, typically the summer is so busy for us. It's like when I'm home, it's for these little 10-day periods where I don't really want to leave the house because I don't want to interact with people. You know, I want to like have that decompression time. But this summer, because we obviously had nothing on the books, I kind of made an agreement that I would say yes to everything. So, you know, my good friend Nate would hit me up twice a week and be like, "Hey man, let's get out on the river and go fishing." I'd go, okay, let's go. You know, anytime I was invited on a hike, you know, I started getting my son outside instead of hanging out inside. We would go on a hike every day. Me and my wife on her days off, we would get outside, and you know, it just Yeah, it means everything to me. You know, the mountains of Southwest Montana are just everything to me, which is why we made the record here. That's why I didn't fly everyone to a studio in LA or something like that. You know, that's why I brought the boys here.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, the word journey I keep using with you because I feel like from punk rock to where you are now, I do have to ask you, you know, at the beginning we were joking around, you got 4 kids. What's it like being a father for you and how does that relate to your own upbringing? Because it definitely is something that, you know, even when you and I have talked, you know, just on the phone or something, it's definitely something that's important to you. I get the feeling from you that it's almost, I always say, your family's your first band. You know, mom and dad are like Mick and Keith, or like Strummer and Mick Jones, or, you know, it's like they're the core. And then you got all your kids, your drummer, bass player, another guitar player. You know, I can feel that family is so important to you. Can you elaborate on that a little bit for me?
Yeah, man, it's everything to me. You know, I had a really good framework growing up of how not to run a family and how not to treat your kids. Um, so it's been a really cool thing. Like I feel like it was my karma to have a bunch of kids, you know, because, you know, I know how my dad was to me. You know, and I spent a good portion of my adult life thus far trying to fucking unpack it all. So, you know, I'm trying to give you know, more than anything I do, you know, I'm trying to create a childhood and existence for my kids that they don't have to recover from. You know, that's like
Got
my
it.
number one goal. Um, so yeah, I mean, you know, everything I do, you know, I hustle really hard, and it's because of my family. You know, if it was just me and I was fucking still living in Chicago as a single dude, you know, my drive would be pretty minimal, you know. But you know, because I have a family, there's this like driving force behind everything I do, you know, not just monetarily to provide for us, but also I just want my kids to be like, you know, and my fucking grandkids to be like, dude, my grandpa was fucking Satsang. That was who my
Yeah.
grandpa was, you know.
Yeah.
That means a lot to me to put some weight behind our name.
Do you think that having your kids and having a family now has pushed you to push the band and to push what you're doing even more so that you leave that mark?
Yeah, 100%. And it's also, you know, it's a huge blessing in a way of, you know, I'm not one of those dudes that fucks around on my wife. I don't do drugs. I don't drink. I smoke a little weed. But um, so because I always have this thing in the back of my head of my family at home, it keeps me out of a lot of shit that a lot of musicians get into. You know, whether that's girls or partying. You know, my focus and drive behind it is so uh, pure. You know, for lack of a better word, it really keeps me on track. But yeah, they're the driving force behind everything I do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I'm gonna switch it really quick here. You know what's funny when I'm looking at you right now, dude? You remind me just of like a young Kevin Seconds. You know, that was something that as a kid growing up, you know, I was such a huge seven. You know how Bad Religion was your band? For me, like
Hmm.
7 Seconds was that band because it was like lyrically, it was everything I was into. You know, musically, it was everything I was into. Kevin's presence on stage, but you definitely have a very Kevin Seconds esque thing about you. You know, I don't know if it's that flannel and like the beanie. It's very NorCal, but yeah, you know, it's like I just remember Kevin asking him that same question, and for him, it was always about the music. It wasn't about anything outside of that moment on stage, that moment with the writing of the music. So that core of what you're talking about. I was, you know how sometimes, you know, as we all stroll through the internet and I found this it was like this YouTube video that was like three things that, you know, that Joe Rogan had to say. And I don't, are you a Joe Rogan fan?
Yeah, I love his stuff.
Okay. So, all right, cool. So, you know, being a comic, I've had the opportunity to meet Joe and work on shows with him. I wouldn't say that we're like friends, like, you know, we're going to go and hang out, but you know, if we run into each other at a club, you know, it's definitely like, oh, hey man, I've opened for you. Oh, cool. What's up? But I read this great interview with him and it was like 3 things that he said. And one of them I took so much away from. He said, you know, live your life like it's a documentary. Like live your life that people like imagine that there's a, and he goes, imagine there's a fucking camera crew following you around and that this film is going to be shown to your children, be shown, you know, to their grandchildren, so that at the end of the day, they can say, you know, my dad, my mother was fucking awesome. Like, check this out. And when I read that during this pandemic, it totally changed my outlook on so many things, because I started going down that rabbit hole of feeling sorry for myself, you know, as just going, how are we going to, I don't see an end to this. I don't know how we're going to get out of it. How is this going to all work out? But when I got that message from Rogan, it really hit me. And I feel like kind of when you and I were talking about parenting, you're almost living your life like that.
Yeah, that's always been a thing to me, man. You know, my biggest fear growing up was, you know, there used to be the like take your kid to work days, you know, and I remember going to my dad's office and my mom's office and seeing everybody in ties and in fucking cubicles. And that, you know, I just remember being so deathly afraid of that life, you know. And then all I ever wanted, whether it was being like a complete dirtbag that was just like, yeah, dude, I spent the fucking bulk of my life chasing powder days and fucking climbing rocks. That was fucking cool to me. I was like, if that's my story, that's a pretty cool fucking story, you know? And like, but with music and fighting and all that, I've always just really taken the like Joseph Campbell approach to the hero's journey of like, yeah, I want to look back on my life at the end of it and just be like, dude, what a fucking ride. That was actually my life, dude. I was you know, a fucking dirtbag outdoorsman turned touring musician, and then released a bunch of fucking classic records. And during that time, you know, was an active part of the MMA community at large. Like, that's a cool fucking story, you know? So yeah, I always have taken that approach of like, if I was looking at my life objectively in the third person, would I think it was cool? You know, so that's a huge thing to me. I love that.
Wow, man, the way that you just summarized that all up, those three things. I love that you said chasing powder and climbing rocks.
Yeah.
That's like, yeah, that's your epitaph right there, bro.
Yes. Yeah, that would be a good one. Yeah, that was, I mean, that's it, you know, like, I'm sure what surfing is to you, you know, that's what skiing is to me. It's like this bottomless thing of this like ridiculously fulfilling interaction with nature, you know, that's like an indescribable soul-serving endeavor.
For me, it's always, you know what I've realized? I feel so important, and you're living it right now. And I've realized it over the last 8 months. It's all about balance. You know, whether it's for you, it's rock climbing and it's skiing, and MMA. I'm sure balance is super important in that. And then for you know, skateboarding and surfing, that I've spent, you know, the better part of my life and way too much time on, it's all about balance. And I feel it's like between balance spiritually, with your family, with your work, and just hanging with you today, man. I can tell you're in that zone, dude. Like, you're in that balance. You definitely have that balance between the components that are going on in your life, man, and enjoy it. I see that look in your eye, dude. I love it. And I can tell it 2021 when we get back out on the road. I can't wait to hang out with you, man. See the show live, you know, and have you throw me into an arm bar or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm real excited to play shows again. Man, I just, you know, I want to make the band bigger, and you know, I want our live shows to start getting, you know, I want to come back with a fucking bang. You know, I want people to be like in awe when we come back, and people like, holy shit, that's a whole different animal now. Yeah,
I think you're gonna have that, just because I think everyone's gonna come back in a way that that we just missed it so much. And as everyone knows, you don't know what you got until it's gone. And I think that's definitely the feeling all of us have had with community and seeing each other, as well as live music.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, dude, I don't want to hold you up, because I know that you got a room full of people there. What's up, buddy? How are you? Look at that, man. What's he listening?
That's my guy.
Is he doing a stream too?
No, yeah, he's watching something. I don't know what the heck it is, but we're about to bust out some Play-Doh.
All right, buddy. Hey, Drew, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Super.
Likewise, man.
to have you on the label. Excited for All Right Now coming out June 2021. We're going to have some singles coming out. You and I hopefully will be crossing paths sooner than later, but welcome to Side One Dummy. It's an honor to have you here.
It's an honor to.
I think the best thing you said to me that made my day, just as and I know that it would make Bill's day as well, is that you said, growing up in the 90s, if you skateboarded, you knew who Side One Dummy was. I'm done. Been doing the label for 26 years. Hearing you say that means everything to me, because when I was growing up, it was like that'd be the equivalent of like, if you were a kid growing up in the 80s, you knew SST put out Black Flag. You knew that Frontier Records, Circle Jerks in Adolescence. You knew Epitaph. It's like, there you go. So that means so much to me, man.
Yeah, it's a true story too, man. You guys are legends.
You're the legend, brother. All right, man. Stay vertical. Stay safe. All right.
Likewise. We'll talk soon.
Absolutely.
All right. See you, dude.